We've got the news to... And all is well.
Good evening.
How are you?
Very well. Anything apart from supercars?
Probably
Malaysia?
not.
Lance going for a Sunday stroll?
Support Australia's longest running independent motorsport show. Go to the In Pit Lane Patreon page and keep In Pit Lane on the air by contributing as little as $5 per month. That's less than one copy of a magazine, only $1.25 per week. Go to www.patreon.com/In Pit Lane and support independent Australian media. Enjoy the show. Yes, welcome to another edition of In Pit Lane. We're coming to you live via the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. We're also hopefully on Facebook and on inpitlane.com. Well, coming up this weekend, of course, is the big one, Bathurst, the Bathurst 1000, the great race. Is it still a great race? I mean, what about with the Bathurst? I think the Bathurst 12 Hour is, in fact, the greater race, but then that's an argument that we can have later. Joining me to argue those things and also to go through the entire field and to tell you all about who we think will win a little bit later on in the program will be Dave Stillwell. Also joining us a little bit later on in the program, the band One More Weekend. They're going to be playing us out tonight. They've got a new album coming out called We Used To, and we'll give you some details of that a little bit later on as well. But let's not waste any time because we've got a lot to talk about. Congratulations to the mighty Tigers. Go Tigers, you did a marvellous job. We might even talk a bit about that as well because we can do these things. But right now, let's talk about motorsport and what happened on the weekend with the In Pit Lane Motorsport News. Teams, drivers and a horde of rabid fans are currently descending, or is that ascending, on Mount Panorama for the annual Bathurst 1000. One team going into the once great race full of confidence will be the ProDrive team, fresh from a big win at Sandown in the traditional lead-up race, the Sandown 500.
Yeah, we've a genuine shot at winning the race this year. Obviously the team's going really well. They've won Bathurst before a few times. Cars are really quick at the moment, and our form up there has been really good. So all our cars are a genuine shot of winning the race, and hopefully it's the car 6.
The 4-car Falcon team is stacked with former Bathurst winners, Mark Winterbottom, Chaz Mostert and Jason Bright.
Having Bathurst on your resume is very important for every driver, and you've got to do everything right over the day. You've got to have all the ingredients right. You can't afford to make any mistakes. You can't afford to have any problems in the pits. Strategy's got to go well, and at the end of the day, you have to be fast because it's a sprint race.
You need luck, but you need the right combinations and the right sort of work done at the workshop and preparation to win that race. So we think we've done enough, but time will tell. It's a big race.
Oh yeah, it's you can have the best car out there, the fastest car all day, but if you don't have luck on your side, Bathurst can bite you pretty hard. So yeah, I've been the high highs at Bathurst, the lower lows. It's just one of those places that deserves ultimate respect.
Max Verstappen has celebrated his 20th birthday in style, taking out the final Malaysian Formula One Grand Prix. Verstappen used his DRS to pass pole sitter Lewis Hamilton on lap 4, and from that point on was never really headed. Hamilton held on for second, with Australia's Daniel Ricciardo in third place, ahead of a fast-closing Sebastian Vettel. Vettel had recovered after starting last on the grid, but featured in the race's most bizarre incident after the checkered flag had fallen. Going around the outside of Lance Stroll on the cool-down lap, the Williams driver appeared to continue straight on at turn 5 as Vettel turned in, resulting in heavy damage to the rear of the Ferrari, forcing Vettel to hitch a ride with Pascal Wehrlein back to the pits. The incident was investigated by stewards after the race, but they opted to take no further action. The circus rolls on this weekend at the famous Suzuka circuit for the Japanese Grand Prix, with Hamilton now 34 points clear of Vettel. NHRA Top Fuel Championship points leader Steve Torrance has taken victory for the 8th time this season with a win at the NHRA Midwest Nationals at Gateway Motorsports Park. Torrance powered to the win over Doug Collitter in the final round. Ron Katz took down rookie Johnny Lindbergh to take his 8th victory of the season in funny car to continue his championship points lead. In Pro Stock, Greg Anderson drove to victory in his Chevy Camaro to defeat teammate and defending champion Jason Line in the final round. The win gives Anderson the points lead in the countdown to the championship, and Ellie Tonglet rode to the Pro Stock motorcycle victory over #1 qualifier Andrew Hines. Kyle Busch raced to his 2nd straight victory with a win at Dover International Speedway in the latest round of the NASCAR Championship chase. Busch came from behind to run down Chase Elliott on the start of the final lap of the race to take the win over Elliott, with Jimmy Johnson in 3rd. Series leader and pole position winner Martin Truex Jr. ran 4th, followed by Kyle Larson. It was a tough weekend for some of the sport's biggest names, as Ryan Newman, Austin Dillon, Casey Kane and Kurt Busch were all eliminated from the playoffs. Inaugural World Formula E champion Nelson Piquet Jr. will join New Zealand driver Mitch Evans in the Jaguar team for Formula E this season. The young Kiwi driver says that he's delighted to have the former champ on board as his new teammate.
Yeah, well, it's great to have Nelson on board for the Season 4 championship. Obviously champion in Season 1, a lot of experience, especially in Formula 1 and at a very high level. And also been, as I said, he's been in the championships in Season 1. So hopefully with his experience, we can grow the team a bit quicker. I was a rookie last year, so it was quite tough, but to have someone like Nelson in the team is going to be a huge asset.
Although the chassis and bodywork are mainly unchanged, this year's championship will see more freedom in the power plant, and Evans is looking forward to the season ahead.
Yeah, well, it's a whole brand new powertrain for us this season, which we're looking forward to. So all new hardware, and we've developed the software from last year. So obviously, with the liveries slightly changed, but all the colour schemes stay the same. But underneath the covers, is quite a bit different. So I won't, we've been focusing a lot on reducing the weight of the car and improving the efficiency. But apart from that, we'll see what the performance is like, and obviously our competitors are going to be, improving as well. But we'll see where we stack up in Hong Kong.
The new Formula E World Championship kicks off on the streets of Hong Kong in December. Want to know more about In Pit Lane? Well, you can support us via Patreon. Go to patreon.com/In Pit Lane. Remember to subscribe and like our YouTube channel. Check out the In Pit Lane website for lots of live streaming and all the latest news. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, email us at theshow@inpitlane.com, and to find out more about effective and affordable advertising for your company or products, email us at advertise@inpitlane.com. In Pit Lane, 21 years, and they haven't killed us yet. Yes, welcome back. Well, as we said, Bathurst on the weekend. Oh, just quickly, didn't get time and unfortunately didn't have any footage to show, but congratulations to Max Vidal, who won the Formula Ford Series last weekend down at Phillip Island. Went right down to the wire. So congratulations to him, and congratulations to everybody who was down the island and did whatever it was that they did down there. I don't know. I was in bed the whole time, doing other things, whatever. Now, coming up this week, speaking of time to spend at home and basically just lounge in front of the television, it's Bathurst weekend. It has a very special place in Australian popular culture, and anything that runs at Bathurst at Mount Panorama is a remarkable race. One person who probably won't be lying in his bed watching it from home is probably someone who will probably be there, I'm sure, and he's our guest tonight. You saw him on our first episode this year. He is Dave Stillwell. Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I won't be enjoying Bathurst on the couch, so happy Bathurst Day for those of you watching on Sunday. I'll actually be working up in race control. So one of my roles is working with an organisation called Team Medical Australia, who's the preferred medical services supplier for the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship. So as part of that, I'll be working up in race control, sitting essentially 2 seats to the left of Craig Baird, the category driving standards observer.
So what's your exact role there in being up in the race controls?
So my position is referred to as either a medical controller or a medical communicator. So all of the communications, but for all of the emergency services teams, so recovery, fire, medical, are all communicated from the vehicle's position and teams positioned around the circuit directly to race control and then communicated back. So anytime there's an issue on the circuit, that's reported by a flag point or through a control loop, back to race control, medical services, fire service put on standby, and then so I communicate the direction from either the race director or the clerk of course to the required vehicles and teams, and obviously communicate that information backwards and forwards. So updates to race control, indications of how severe an incident might be, to make sure that the event is conducted in accordance with all the FIA and CAMS requirements for administering medical attention. We've seen some big accidents at Bathurst previously, so I've actually worked at some scenes, things like the Chaz Mostert accident from 2015, right down to the Aussie racing car rollover the day after. Bathurst is our biggest event. It often has the highest throughput through the on-track medical centre, which is there to look after the team personnel, so the drivers, the crews and the officials. And of course, it's a racetrack with consequences, as Peter Brock would say. And a lot of drivers push very hard for that one race of the year. So I'll be operating at a high level, at a very high frequency for 4 days. Looking forward to heading up there with the team tomorrow.
The other thing is, of course, you mentioned the consequences in the one race of the year. We still can't forget that it's not just the supercars that are going to run there, because we've got a Super 2 race up there. Carrera Cup is there, the Touring Car Masters.
Yeah, full bevy of the complete supercars or the super packages. And again, all of the drivers, all of the teams, all the crews really look forward to this event. A very, very festival atmosphere. Regardless of who wins the championship, no one remembers who finished second in the championship, but a lot of people remember who was on the podium at Bathurst. It's the biggest celebration in Australian motorsport. Whether you're running in the Supercars Championship, sponsored by Virgin Australia, in the Dunlop Super 2s, in the Touring Car Masters, in Porsche Carrera Cup, I think, or even the Toyota 86 Racing Series running there, I mean, that'll be one to watch for some of the stars of the future.
I suppose it's a bit like Le Mans in terms of, there's that argument that people are having now. I mean, should it even be a part of the championship? Is it that important that it could just still be a sort of a standalone event? Because it's really hard for people who are contesting the championship. I mean, in terms of, they've got to look at the two things. They want to win Bathurst, but they don't want to do anything stupid that's going to destroy their chance of winning the championship. Whereas if it wasn't a part of the championship, they could just say, no, this is just, it's all or nothing.
Look, there are two sides to that argument. I think particularly since they've made it very much focused on being a championship style event. So yes, it is an event in and all of itself. But at the same time, by focusing on saying, no, the main series or the primary driver in the car must remain in the car, not allowing, say, for instance, Scott Pye and James Courtney to team up, or Jamie Whincup and Shane Van Gisbergen to team up in a single car, is maintaining it as being a championship-style race. If they went to it being a non-championship, I think if you actually look at the lesson from having the Super 2 race, as a non-championship event, I believe, last year and also this year. That's the last year they're going to be doing it, because making it non-championship for those teams that are focused on a championship, it definitely makes you focus on getting everything right for that one weekend. By the same token, the Sandown 500 is still a 300 points paying weekend for just a single 500 kilometre or 161 lap race, or it was 120, whatever it is. The hashtag Sandown 393, I believe, was trending on Twitter after that event a few weeks ago. I think if you made it a non-championship event, you'd probably see a few more wildcard entries. Interesting to note, we have no wildcard entries this year. So, there's no...
Yeah, only 26 cars.
26 cars, but 26 cars, as we'll go through a little bit later, quite a few stacked very well in terms of driving talent and mechanical expertise in terms of how the teams have set the cars up, particularly when you can contrast it to 2016, considering we're going back to that specification tyre. A lot of teams will be putting that specification uprights back into the car in the setups. So really interesting to see once we reset that development race that we've had in 2017. So
yeah, that's the interesting thing. I mean, because we've had a few tyre issues at some of the rounds this year, and so they are sort of going back to what they know is going to last and providing the setup. So that's probably going to change things for quite a few teams.
Yeah, I think if you look through the order of cars that we'll have for this event, I think a lot of the teams that have struggled with the 2017 specification super soft and soft tyres, again, the tyres are very different construction. Kevin Fitzsimmons has done a really great couple of video pieces for both the Supercars website and I think Speed Cafe, if you want to learn more about the differences in the tyres. Effectively, we're going to a harder compound, so there's less overall grip between the tyre and the road, but also the construction changes. So how much camber you can generate, both static and dynamic, and also how much pressure you run in the tyre, and how much spring rate you run. All of that development that they've run through 2017, all of the Generation 5 and Generation 6 uprights that the 888 race engineering organisation has been pumping out to its customers, all of that development race is basically reset. We go back to a tyre that the only people that have been running on in 2017 have been the Dunlop Super 2 races. And I think that's where a lot of the experience of adjusting back to that tyre is going to come to. I think some of the combinations that have a front-running Super 2 driver are going to do very, very well on this tyre. In fact, I think we might see some of the Super 2 drivers putting in better lap times than some of the primary drivers, particularly in some of the front-running Dunlop Super 2 drivers like Jack LeBrock and Gary Jacobson.
Okay, well, we're going to go through the field in just a moment, but just quickly, just to let you know, if you'd like to support In Pit Lane, that one way you can do it and keep us on the air is by going to Patreon. Patreon is a way that you can make a small donation every month that keeps In Pit Lane on the air. Look, it's one of those things, if you buy a magazine or something, you wouldn't expect to just sort of walk in off the street and pick up a magazine, a copy of Auto Action or Autosport or something and say, oh yeah, that looks a bit interesting, I'll take that and just walk out without paying. It's a bit like that now in the world of television. The old television model of you getting it for nothing because advertisers paid for everything, that's dying very quickly, unfortunately, as we probably saw with what's happened with Formula One telecasts. That's a long story, but we won't go there. But anyway, that's one of the things that ways that you can support all sorts of new content is by getting directly involved. And it starts at only $5 a month. That's $1.25 a week. So it's less than the price of a cup of coffee. And as I said last week, if everybody who watches the show regularly put in the $1.25 a month, we would be able to say, yes, we're coming back for the rest of the year, for into next year. We'd be a lot more comfortable off than we are now. So if you would like to support us, just go to the Patreon page. That's www.patreon.com/InPitLane, and you just put your details down there, and it's all handled automatically through the miracle of the interwebs and all those sorts of things. So that's how you go about it, support on Patreon. Also, if you're looking to advertise any of your products or events coming up, you can advertise, get in touch with us, contact us at advertise@InPitLane, and we can tell people all around Australia and indeed all around the world about your products and services. That is indeed if we like them. We've got to like them first. We're cheap, but we're not easy. Okay, well, let's get back to, let's get on to the people who are running this weekend at Mount Panorama. And we're sort of working our way backwards according to the odds. We're not going to tell where the odds are or what the odds are or all the rest. We might give you a few sort of, but we're not we're not encouraging, as they used to say on Punter to Punter on Triple R, we're not encouraging you to gamble, we're encouraging you to bet. So let's go sort of work backwards. Car number 62, Alex Rouleau and Alex Davison. They are the rank outsiders. Two ends of the spectrum in terms of experience.
Experience, age.
Yeah. I think Alex Rouleau has actually done a pretty reasonable job.
I think he's met all the metrics that the championship and a lot of his fellow competitors expected of him. Obviously, he was running on a provisional V8 super license, so to speak, by CAMS. He passed all of those tests, unlike one of the other drivers who was intending to join the Lucas Dumbrell Motorsports stable for 2017. I think having Alex Davison there, good pair of hands, a lot of experience running the Enduros, understands how to get the car in a rhythm. I think going back to the 2016 tyre, it's no secret that Lucas Dumbrell's running some of the oldest and least developed cars in the category, and obviously there's a bit of a cloud hanging over the team at the moment with the ownership buyout by Phil Munday from Repair Management Australia, and of course a rumoured link to a customer ProDrive racing deal and potentially some driver swaps for 2018. I think if you look at Lucas Dumbrell's always managed to make pretty good strategy calls. I think keeping that car in the lead lap with Alex Rouleau on board will be their prime focus, and getting Alex a lot of experience. Alex Davison knows exactly what he needs to do. He'll hand it over, hum along in the lunchtime stints in the co-driver races, the co-driver racing section of the race. I think the primary goal for that team should be finishing on the lead lap, and I think finishing in the top half would be a very good reward for what is essentially Alex Rouleau's Bathurst 1000 debut.
Under those circumstances, do you think that it would be wise for them to start with Davison in the car rather than Rouleau?
To be honest, Rouleau's actually got more experience starting the car through the course of this year. Alex Davison hasn't been doing a huge amount of racing, obviously does some Carrera Cup, but in terms of starting one of these cars with a full load of fuel on board, with the hard compound tyre, Alex has got a lot of experience in that from running the Dunlop Super 2 last year, and I think Alex knows how to start the car. Sorry, Alex Rouleau knows how to start the car. A1 and A2 we'll have to talk about. I think regardless of who they start, that car will most likely qualify towards the rear of the grid. And I think their first strategy call will probably be parking the thing in pit lane, dumping as much fuel into it and starting it from pit exit, staying out of all the drama, let everyone else fall off and find the weeds in the fence, and again, stay on that lead lap like we saw the Russell wildcard a few years ago. I think that's got to be their primary goal.
Seems to be, with only 26 cars in the race, that seems to be sort of the tactic now, is that it's a series of sprint races more than it is, because we know we're going to get safety cars, and there's no point rushing off into the distance and going crazy, because at some stage everything's going to concertina back together, but you've got to stay on that lead lap to have any chance at all.
And I think that also applies to, I believe, our next car on the list.
Yes, that's Simona Di Silvestro and Dave Russell in the Nissan. Simona is, on occasion, she's showing that she's certainly doing a good job. She's keeping it off the wall. She's not making any mistakes, and she's there or thereabouts.
Well, just remember, this is the first time she goes back to a racetrack that she's actually raced at before. I think when she was paired up with Renee Gracie, their focus was to stay on the lead lap. Unfortunately, I believe last year they were a lap or two down at the end by virtue of pitting at the wrong time, the safety cars not falling their way. David Russell, there's no doubt that he will be an improvement on pace advantage compared to Renee. Knows the cars, knows the tyre, very long-term enduro driver with the Kelly Motorsport Nissan operation. And Simona, again, back in the same car, on the same tyre, circuit she's raced at now 3 times.
Yes,
and I think that will definitely bode well for them. Again, staying on the lead lap, I think a top 50% finish will definitely be a just reward for that car after obviously a sort of a bitter debut in 2015, and obviously finishing a lap or two off the pace in 2016.
Coming up next in the running the rebuilt car, the Blanchard Hazelwood car
for Team Cool Drive.
Yeah.
Now sporting the Logicar signage on the windscreen.
They would be a sponsor of yours by some chance,
not at
would they,
all.
or?
No, not at all. The logical choice in EFI. Redemption. We saw James Golding, 2016, first lap incident at Sandown, tyre went down, fired in the fence, car had to be rebuilt, went back to Bathurst a few weeks later, absolutely did everything that was needed, was even pushing a bit hard and tagged the wall earlier in the weekend. And that car, the number 34 with James Moffat, was running really, really strong towards the end until the engine let go. Nothing to his fault. I think Todd will be absolutely doing everything he can. And a few people suggest that given that he's got a lot of running on that 2016 specification hard tyre in his Dunlop Super 2 car, admittedly a 888 car run by Matt Stone Racing, I think you'll definitely see them being very close on pace. And if what people are telling me about Todd is true, might even see him eclipse Tim Blanchard. And you could consider this an audition for a main game drive in 2018. Obviously, the Blanchard family have bought out that wreck, running it with Brad Jones Racing. Tim has made no bones about the fact that he enjoys racing. He's good, but could, for instance, those sponsors be better represented by a fast young talent who's obviously a crowd favourite in Todd Hazelwood?
And coming up next on the run, we've got Aaron Russell and Taz Douglas.
Again, a rebuilt car after an early race incident at the Sandown 500. Again, that car's been repaired at the. Again, although it's a 888 originally built car, it's been repaired by the team at Gary Rogers Motorsport. So big thanks to Gary and his team from Wilson Security Racing for putting that back together. Again, I think that will all be about staying on the lead lap, and I think a top 50 finish for that car would be a good bounce back after a bitter, again, same thing for the other LDM car of the two Alexes. That being said though, Lucas Dumbrell Motorsports always been there or thereabouts at the end of a race. We saw Nick Percat pop up late in the race last year. And also if you go back a couple of years ago to when Paul Morris and Scott Pye teamed up in 2013, popped up in the top 6, I think, at the end of the race. So the cars are a bit old, but going back to that 2016 tyre negates a lot of that development advantage. I think those guys will definitely be looking to finish strongly, but again, finish will be the main thing.
Dale Wood and Chris Pither, any chance?
Very impressed by the Pither and Dale combination at the Sandown 500 until they copped a couple of knocks a little bit later in the race, and of course the sister car popped a tyre. Dale's been improving, and Chris obviously wants to make up for losing his drive after 2016. I think those guys, I think a top 10 is definitely a chance. But I think when you compare it to the pace of the sister car, probably not an outright contender. But definitely the cars are good. The cars have been good on both the soft tyre and the super soft tyre. And again, we go back to a previous suspension generation, so all bets are off. The only thing is though, those guys don't have any current Dunlop Super 2 running, so not a lot of current experience from the last 12 months of running on that compound tyre.
We saw Jason Bright, they're on the next line of the betting, Bright and Jacobson, and I think that's a lot lower in the rankings than I would have expected those guys to be. I mean, I know Brighty's had it's not been the best of years, but I mean, there's lots of experience, and Gary Jacobson's a damn good steerer as well.
I wouldn't exactly call it a dark horse, because you'd never call Jason Bright a dark horse. You know, he's been at the front running, be it with BJR, being it with Brytech, being it with FPR. Or SBR, has always run out on near the front of that race. And Gary Jacobson, 2016 Dunlop Super 2 Series champion on the Dunlop hard compound tyre, currently running at or near the front of the Dunlop Super 2 Series on the Dunlop hard tyre. Again, one of the cars where we could probably see the co-driver being a very similar pace or even possibly slightly quicker. And you could also consider this an audition as some question marks linger over where does Jason Bright go in 2018. There's discussions about whether there's some swapping between LDM and ProDrive with that customer arrangement. Again, definitely, I wouldn't say a dark horse, maybe a very shaded horse. Very, very dark shade of grey. I think definitely you
certainly couldn't rule them out. You couldn't say, no, they've got no chance. You couldn't say that at all.
But the biggest problem, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about the other cars from the PRA stable, is pit lane priority. And that's going to really hurt the teams that have got two very strongly positioned cars.
The team of Moffat and Muscat.
Again, the debut for Richard Muscat in the Bathurst 1000. A lot of Super 2 miles this year. James Moffat, he's got to knock that bad luck out of his system. He obviously had a really surprise podium in 2014 after the car was in the fence twice with Nissan in the Team Norton car. Last year was running fairly strongly. We talked about James Golding's performance until an engine failure. The cars are a known quantity with engines from Walkinshaw. The cars have been some of the best performing race pace Commodores when compared to the Red Bull Holden Racing team. Never count out a Moffat at Bathurst.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I think that was one of the interesting things that came up in conversation at Sandown with the whiteboard, with Larko's whiteboard, was just what an amazing record that Alan Moffat had at Bathurst. We all know that Peter the Brock was the king of the mountain and all that, but boy, the record that Moffat had was just remarkable.
And of course, there'll be another story about Alan Moffat when we get down to some of the cars from the Pro Drive Racing stable about some special
livery,
historic tribute liveries coming up, which of course we don't actually have yet because that doesn't get announced until tomorrow. But I think Richards will definitely be keeping the blinkers on and obviously eyes forward. Can't get involved in too much of the other stuff. And we'll just be handing the car over to James and let James look after the last 2, possibly 3 stints of the race. Definitely top 10. They will be there, providing no other failures. They will be there at the top 10 or knocking on the door at the end of the race. And then after that, it just comes down to who's got the tyres, who's got the pace at the end of the race.
Car number 7 is 20th Bathurst, Todd Kelly and Jack LeBrock.
So Todd sporting a special number this year. Normally, traditionally runs the number 7. He switched to running 20, which celebrates his 20 years in the category. I think we talked about the Dunlop Super 2 generation and some auditions. Again, question marks get raised every year about whether Todd Kelly would step aside and focus on being a team owner and a co-driver in much the same way that Jono Webb has done. I think that Jack LeBrock's proved he's a front runner in Pro Drive machinery. He's proved he's a front runner in Nissan Motorsport machinery run by Matthew White Motorsport. Got a lot of miles on the Dunlop hard tyre. I know I sound like a broken record, but it is all about tyres and having them and understanding what they do. He's run the equivalent car with a different spring and shock package in it, again for the Super 2 regulations all year. Very, very focused on it. Done a lot of testing in Todd's car. Definitely of the Nissans, this is one of the strongest combinations.
Now the next car on the line of betting, Lee Holdsworth and Carl Reindler.
Definitely wanting to make up for the disappointment after I believe they dropped a rocker or a valve early in the race and had to retire the car. Again, 2 drivers very, very equal on pace. Carl was very impressive in the co-driver sessions, as was Lee against the main drivers. I think a top 10 finish for that team at Bathurst when we've got so many highly stacked pairs would definitely be a huge benefit for Team 18.
Okay, we'll go through a couple more. The team of Caruso and Dean Fiore. And also we'll go through Nick Percat and Macaulay Jones. Also Rick Kelly and Dave Wall. They're all around the same sort of mark there. So anything that stands out there?
So Dean and Michael's often been the front running Nissan all year. Indeed, last year, looking back at some of the 2016 highlights, was the front running Nissan later in the race. Although they're mismatched on height, Michael is very, very short and Dean is quite tall, and they work well together as a team. They speak the same language. They're very experienced in that car. They're very experienced on that tyre. Only question mark might be Dean Fiore's hasn't got a huge amount of miles, but that being said, hasn't stopped him from jumping the car and being competitive. I think the super soft and the soft tyre development race through 2017's really left a lot of the Nissans behind, with the exception of some pace at Darwin and Adelaide. I think going back to last year's tyre will suit a lot of the development knowledge they have on their in their background. Nick Percat and Macaulay Jones, I think that's the redemption for South Australia after the bitter end to the Saturday afternoon at the MCG. In fact, all 3 Brad Jones racing cars have got a South Australian on board in Todd Hazelwood, Nick Percat and Tim Slade. So interesting to see how many Adelaide Crows flags just sneak out of the wardrobe for that team. Macaulay just has to make sure that he hands over the car to Nick in perfect condition. In the same way, I think you'd see that relationship between Nick and Macaulay will be very similar to how Nick and Garth Tander worked in 2011 when they won the race.
We're running out of time, so I'll jump a couple there. There was a car that I think is really, in terms of, like you talk about value for betting. I mean, I've said before, you don't bet on car racing, you'd be mad to. But if you did, Scott Pye and Warren Luff, I think they're paying the $63.
Well, car looks brilliant in the tribute to the 1997. It was the 20th anniversary of that livery from the HRT eras. Car looks great. Scott's beard is magnificently trimmed right now. Warren Luff, really, really great co-driver, knows exactly what needs to happen there. A lot of time in that car.
There's a group of co-drivers in there. He's one of them. I mean, of course, people like Alex Premer and Paul Dumbrell and those sort of people who come. Steve Owen, every year they turn up, and you know that you put them in the car and you don't have to worry because they're just going to do their job.
And regardless of how the season has been working out, we know that that the team from Walkinshaw, when it was HRT last year, was struggling for pace a little bit last year, and then come Bathurst, turned it on like a light bulb. Garth Tander was right there at the end, both on pace and strategy, before having that awkward contretemps with Jamie Whincup and Scott McLaughlin towards the end of the race. So Scott Pye has effectively taken over that seat, taken over that co-driver. Definitely a dark horse. But again, congratulations to Walkinshaw Racing for keeping that livery on the car. Looks great. I'm sure you'll sell a bunch of merchandise leading up to the race.
What about the other Walkinshaw car, Courtney and Jack Perkins?
Well, Jack Perkins is running a tribute livery for his dad Larry.
The helmet.
Yep.
Yes.
So really, really great to see that. Obviously, a couple more safety advancements on that helmet, most notably the Hans device, tether posts, and obviously the drinks hose and the air ventilation. Again, team that a combination that performed very solidly in the Pertec Enduro Cup. Again, Walkinshaw Power seems to work very well, both from an efficiency point of view in terms of maximising their fuel mileage and also getting the car up and down the straight. And of course, James Courtney is hell-bent on trying to get himself a Bathurst win. He's got a championship victory. Again, championship this year is a write-off of the walk for the Mobil 1 HSV racing. I think they'll be definitely focusing on putting, between those two cars, I can't really pick one. It'll come down to who's got pit priority when it comes down to that last round of stops or if there's a late race safety car.
Another car that's I think is remarkably good odds, the team of Garth Tander and James Golding.
Never, ever, ever count out Garth Tander at Bathurst. However it works out, whether it's pace, whether it's his driving, whether it's strategy calls, he has some affinity for the place. He is always there at the end. He's always got a car, drives the car beautifully, very good under brakes, and for whatever reason looks after the car in such a way that he can push really hard and apply maximum pressure at the end of the race. Applying the blowtorch to Jason Bright the last couple of years, and of course when he was just sitting back waiting for Jamie Whincup to make a move on McLaughlin and was just ready to reap the rewards, it all went pear-shaped. Definitely not so much a revenge, but a retribution. Be looking to definitely pull the jobs out. And again, James Golding, again, after an engine failure last year, definitely looking for a good result. Did pretty well at Sandown. And again, I believe the tribute livery for that car looked resplendent.
Okay, we're running right out of time, so let's go. Some of the more fancied runners, the winners from Sandown, Cam Waters and Richie Stanaway. I was amazed, as I said on the show and I said online, the reaction to Richie Stanaway is, oh my God, this kid from New Zealand, isn't it remarkable? He's doing so well. I mean, the guy is a factory driver with Aston Martin. He's won at Monaco in open wheelers.
GP3, GP2, Formula Renault.
They're two very good steerers.
He only came from nowhere if you had blinders on and you're only looking at supercars. If you know anything about sports car racing or open wheel racing, Richie Stanaway's been at the front of a lot of things.
And this is a sprint to him.
Yeah, and this is nothing. A 6-hour race, that's a WEC race on a Sunday afternoon. They do that 10 times a year. Buoyed by the form from Sandown. ProDrive has a lot of data on board from the 2016 tyre because they've been running Super 2 cars. Definitely a top 5 for that car. Anything less than a top 10 will be a disappointment for them, particularly after their form at Sandown.
Interesting pairing, Fabian Coulthard and Tony D'Alberto.
Same pairing as last year. They were running at the front of the race until they had to make a decision about whether they stopped for fuel or not. Had they been able to keep going, there were 2 safety cars late in the race last year. Could they have made it home on fuel? Probably, but they might not have made it home on pace on tyres. Penske, DJR team Penske's put a lot of development into those cars this year. What they don't have is data from running Super 2 cars, and they don't have anyone who's run a Super 2 car in the last 12 months. So I think that will stem from a lot of the Ludo Lacroix excellence from who's obviously turned the Whincup on the 888 cars last year. They've got him in their camp, so what sort of secrets has he brought?
It shows you the importance of a really good engineer. I mean,
Correct,
the touch that he's just, come in and given that car, it's just that little bit extra that they needed, and he's just pushed them over the edge.
Yeah, I think the two Penske cars and the two Red Bull Holden Racing Team cars, you can basically say that they're probably going to finish in the top 6. It's whoever else is there or thereabouts at the end.
Speaking of the 888 cars, one of them is not the Red Bull car, but the Craig Lowndes and Steve Richards team. I mean, in terms of experience, you can't get any better. That would be an enormously popular win if they could get up and any chance.
It's kind of the 888 car that's gotten a little bit missing in 2017 for whatever reason, just setup or driving style or the development of parts has kind of left them behind. Proven combination, won in 2015. What will really determine their result is how they go for pit priority, with car 19 also in the same garage, which is Jono Webb and Will Davison, last year's winners.
Okay, let's go through the line of the favourites at the moment. Scott McLaughlin and Alex Premer, and then just behind them, only 50 cents behind them, Whincup, Dumbrell and Van Gisbergen and Matt Campbell. They're the top 3. Is that where the winner is coming from? If you were putting the money on, which one of those would you have your
I think you
on?
would be hard-pressed to not put money on one of the Red Bull Holden Racing Team cars or one of the DJR Team Penske cars. Scott McLaughlin, Alex Premer were running Scott's run at the front all year. The cars were quick, as we saw with Fabian Coulthard in 2016. Alex is no question about his pace, jumped straight in the car, was bang up to speed. They know each other, they like each other. Again, it'll come down to pit priority between those two cars and whether, because they're both still in the championship hunt as well. You don't want to, throw the thing in the fence and walk away with a donut, unless you're getting a nice tasty one. You don't want to end up with 0 points walking away from this weekend because, again, they still have to consider the championship. The Jamie Whincup, Paul Dumbrell, Shane Van Gisbergen, Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell's second Bathurst 1000, Jamie Whincup and Paul Dumbrell's umpteenth. I think the Whincup Dumbrell car, if they make any mistakes this year, it will seriously call into question the relationship between Whincup and Dumbrell. Dumbrell's handed over a car in a winning position, or a position that they could win from the last couple of years. For whatever reason, be it team strategy or decisions by Jamie, it's gone.
Yeah, you can't make any mistakes. I mean, a couple of times is careless, but and I do it again, and people are going to start asking questions. Just quickly, because we're right out of time. Your pick and also your outsider, your best value.
I think best value. I think we didn't mention them. The David Reynolds, Luke Youlden. They proved at Sandown that they were running really far at the front. I think they'll be a little bit further down the order on the odds, but that team's proven, particularly with that car, that they've got speed this year, and they also had speed last year. David Reynolds is the current lap record holder on this tyre at this circuit, after they had some dramas last year. We haven't mentioned Chaz Mostert and Stevie Owen. I think that car really will fly under the radar, except with its paintwork, it kind of stands out a bit. Dean Cantor and Mark Winterbottom, I think after the bit of disappointment of the brake failure last year, Dino's a safe pair of hands. Mark Winterbottom looking to put his, again, he's ignoring the championship now, focused on the win. I think Mark Winterbottom is of good value because he'll be down on odds. Same with David Reynolds. But for me, it's really going to come down to, I think, a battle, as we've seen all year, between the last two stints. It'll be between Scott McLaughlin and Jamie Whincup, and whoever else is able to keep up with those cars.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I'm thinking my tip is going to be. I'd love to say McLaughlin and Premer because they're both terrific guys, but a lot of them are terrific guys. But Van Gisbergen and Campbell, I really like that pairing. I think just in terms of sheer speed, Campbell's a talent. There's no doubt about it. Van Gisbergen, we know how good Shane is. So that's my pick. And as I said before, the team of Luff and Pye, I think would be my outsiders. Dave, good luck heading up to Bathurst tomorrow. What time do you get up there tomorrow?
I have to be up at stupid o'clock. Unfortunately, because all of our members are volunteers, they've also got full-time jobs. So I actually have to pick up a couple of nurses after they finish night shift overnight.
How many times have I heard that?
So our road trip to Bathurst starts early tomorrow morning. Obviously takes about 9 or 10 hours to drive up, and then of course got set at the medical centre. And of course it's 4 days from very early in the morning. There's on-track activity on times to start with a 7, right through till 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. So 4 big days, huge amount of volunteer officials out there, and of course we can't go motor racing without them. So on behalf of myself and all the people who enjoy motorsport, a big thank you to all the volunteer officials who are heading up there this weekend. We can't do it without you, and we all appreciate your efforts. I'll be one of you up in race control.
Yeah, it's a huge commitment. I mean, whether it's the Grand Prix or Bathurst or any of those things, they are major commitments. And as you say, without those people, we couldn't go there. Good luck up there on the weekend. Hopefully, it's a quiet weekend for you. That's the main thing.
Yes, we always start out that way, but it never ends up that way.
Never ends up that way. And we'll see you hopefully in a few weeks' time. But for now, Dave Stillwell, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you to you, Dave. Now, coming up, we've got some music from our band tonight. They are One More Weekend. There we are. That's their new album. We Used To. It's called We Used. I don't know what they used to do, but anyway, that's what it is. We Used To. That's the new album that they are putting out at the moment, and you can get that. We'll give you some details this weekend. They're playing. You can catch them everywhere this weekend. If you're not going up to Bathurst, you can check out One More Weekend. They're at the Central Club in Richmond. They're at the Loft at Warrnambool. They're at the Brunswick Hotel in Brunswick. And as I said, if you're looking to buy their album, which as I said is the We Used To. There we are, debut album We Used To. It's available from their website, www.onemoreweekend.com. And remember, if you like the guys, like and follow them on Facebook and Instagram. But right now, they're going to take us out tonight. And have a good weekend for Bathurst. And until we see you on next week's In Pit Lane, this is One More Weekend, and listen. Good night.
This song's called Listen.
Okay, cool.
Thanks to upgrading, I always feel degraded. It's time to change, and it's a constant investment. I pull it out of my pockets. No, I've got nothing susceptible to impulses. I feel like we're falling down. Now I'm flat broke, thanks to higher powers that we can't control. Is there a group in a room that decides it all? This is what we feed them. Now I'm flat broke, thanks to higher powers that we can't control. Is there a group in a room that decides it all? This is what we feed them. Everyone's only trying to get by. You put it up on walls and malls. You'll feel better if you buy. But it's all lies. Money doesn't make the world go round, but you're determined to make us believe that it's the key to fixing all our problems. Now I'm flat broke, thanks to higher powers that we can't control. Is there a group in a room that decides it all? This is what we feed them. Now I'm flat broke, thanks to higher powers that we can't control. Is there a group in a room that decides it all? This is what we feed them. Take it to me. higher powers that we can't control. No, this cycle won't end at all, but it's your choice to listen. Thank you.